This demonstration will be for laser cutting. So we will be going through the College of Architecture for our laser cutting samples. They have 3 different laser cutters there. You can see here the different types of laser cuts and the price per machine. So for us, we will be providing our own material. You'll deliver your fabric that you want laser cut to the architecture building for them to cut. So we won't have any material costs, but we will pay for the time. So there's a base price per size of laser cutter. Most likely we'll either be on the 250 or the 750. I believe 250 because we're going to use the smallest template they have available. And then after that, it's at 10 cents per minute of cutting time. And then it says plus the cost of material, but again, we'll be providing our own material and won't have to pay for it. So go ahead and start by going to their website, which is arc.ttu.edu/lasercutter/. And that will bring you to this site right here. So we will need to download the templates that they provide so that whenever we go to submit our file, it is in that template. So go ahead and click the download templates. We'll open that up. And then we will need the LC, which stands for laser cut, 18 by 32. So that's the smallest one they have available for us. And then on here, whenever it opens in Illustrator, you should be able to see your 18 by 32 workspace. And then you will have some layers that give you instructions. So this is the instructions layer that tells you exactly how to set up your file and the lines of your file based on how you are going to cut your material. So looking at the layers over here on the right, this layer again is the instruction layer. We can turn that off for now. And then also the grid, I don't really need the grid, but if you happen to need it, you can go ahead and leave it on. But I'm going to go ahead and turn off that grid layer as well. So these bottom 2 layers I went ahead and turned off. The bounding box as well if you want, which just shows you the boundaries of where your workspace is. But for whenever we're actually drawing and putting our design on here, for our particular use, we need to make sure that we are on the cutting layer. So they have different layers for each type of cut that you can potentially do. Scoring, rastering, and images typically are saved for other materials like wood, plexiglass, those sorts of things. There are some maybe raster or images that you would be able to etch into a thicker material like a leather or something like that. But we won't get into that this particular semester. So for now, we are doing full cuts through the fabric. So on the cutting layer is where you want all of your design work to be. And then at this point, you can go ahead and start drawing out your design. So you can draw from scratch using your pen tool, create enclosed shapes. So one important thing is that all of your shapes are fully enclosed if you want a full cut. If you want it to be more like a flap, if I were to create something like this without closing that shape, the laser cut would cut along that line, but then this would be a flap on the fabric rather than a full hole where the laser cut out a full shape. So if you want a full shape, make sure that all of your corners are connected. And if you have something where you're trying to connect the corners, let's see, something like this where your corners didn't quite connect, or if it was even closer than that, here. So let's say you had 2 corners that are on top of each other, but they're not technically connected or joined. You can see that whenever I zoom in quite a bit. These are not connected. We want all of our enclosed shapes to be fully connected. So in this case, I would need to come in, highlight those 2 points, and then right-click, say join. And so that's going to join it into a full shape. So make sure all of your shapes are full shapes unless you intend to only have a flap, which is okay. So draw on here and create your full laser cut. And you can use any of the tools available to you over to the left. Another way to do this is from an image. So I'm gonna go ahead and show y'all. I'm gonna pull in an image that I have saved on my computer. So this was a hand drawing of a dragonfly that was scanned into the computer. So you can hand draw designs as well, and then create, turn them into vector images, which are, a vector line is that kind of editable, malleable line that we have in Illustrator. So I'm gonna take this image. The first thing I need to do is do Object, Rasterize. And you can do RGB, which it would be full color, or you can do grayscale. Doesn't really matter because in the end, we're just going to end up with our outlines by the time we're done with this. And then on the background, we want to go ahead and select transparent because we don't want those white backgrounds. We just want the outlines. So say okay. And then Object, Image Trace, Make and Expand. Okay. And what this does is it gives me the outlines. It's turned that drawing into now vector lines that I can edit. So this is what we were talking about, these editable lines. So we don't want any of that white space. We still have some in here with a white fill to it. You can tell that because whenever I move it, it blocks out that black behind it. So I'm going to select one of those with a white fill and then go to select same fill color and delete all of those. So now I shouldn't have a background at all. If I click out here in the white space, it doesn't select anything. So I know I don't have a background. And if I select right in the middle of those holes, it's not clicking on anything. So I know that I have empty holes. And now we need to select all of our black lines, and we only want the outline. So I'm going to go ahead and flip my fill and my outline over here on the left. Flip it. So your fill is empty and your outlines are black. So that leaves you with just the lines of your image. Now, another thing to consider and constantly think about as you're designing your laser cut is that the negative space is going to be the most important. Your negative space is going to be what is left behind of the fabric, and then the shapes that you're drawing are what will fall away once it's cut. So in this particular dragonfly, I have this outline. Try and select it. There we go. So I have this outline that goes around the entire shape of the dragonfly. I don't want that because if I leave that there, I'm going to end up with a large dragonfly shaped hole in my fabric, and all of this detail on the inside will fall away with it. So I'll have a bunch of pieces cut up of my fabric, but my actual fabric that's left behind, the yardage that's usable, will just have a big dragonfly shaped hole. So I'm going to go ahead and take away that outline. And now you can see I'm left with individual shapes. So it makes up the image of a dragonfly when they're all put together, but they're all individual shapes. So that is what we want for our laser cut. We want individual shapes to be cut out. And again, you can create imagery by putting those together. On this particular image, our shapes are too close together. Again, the negative space is most important. So if I go into this wing here, and select that head. If I go into this wing, those spaces in between my shapes are very narrow. That means that my fabric that's connecting all of this together and making it one large piece of fabric is going to be very narrow, very weak, and those connections can tear. So I don't want my connections, my gaps in between my shapes to be that small. So on this particular image, I'm going to start blowing that out. I'm going to move the wing a little bit further away from the body, so I have a larger gap right here. And then I'm also going to start messing with these shapes on my wing to separate them a little bit. Kind of give this a little bit more gap in between. I'll do one full shape to show you, or one full wing, excuse me, to show you the difference between left and right. Okay, so there's one full wing blown out and separated. I still get the detail of the dragonfly, but now I'm going to have stronger connections of my fabric in between those holes so that it doesn't tear as easily. And then keep in mind these little tiny holes. So these little tiny shapes are going to be very small holes in my fabric. So they may not even be necessary. They may not add any detail to the design. So some of those very, very small ones like this, you can just go ahead and get rid of and clean up the design a little bit. And then continue to blow this out. So even this body, I would want to separate these shapes some more so that I have more space in between. And then same with this one, go ahead and move your wing out. Away from the body some, and then you can start separating all of those so that you end up with more space, especially in here in these areas where our shapes are almost touching each other. Okay, so do that to your entire design, and then we're going to go ahead and bring this into our template. So select all of it. I'm going to copy, Command C on my computer. Head over to here, make sure that I'm on my cutting layer, and I can paste it on there. Another thing, when you're setting up your file, it is very important that none of your shapes are grouped or compounded together. This is a compound image since I did an image trace and it came from originally a raster image. It's a compound shape. So I've got to go over here, select it, go into properties, and then I can say release. And it will release all of those shapes into individual. So when I select one, it's only selecting that individual shape rather than the full grouping of the dragonfly. Also, as you're designing, you may group things together to make it a little bit easier to move stuff around. That is fine, but make sure that before you submit your file that you right click, and on here, if anything was grouped, you can say ungroup and make sure to ungroup everything before you submit. Okay, once all of your lines are ungrouped and released, you can go ahead and position them where you need to on your file. I want you to fill up this entire 18 by 32 space with a repeat print, a design of some sort so that you can cut yardage of fabric and then use that to make a garment. So take your designs, they need to start all the way up in the left-hand corner. So push your design all the way up to the left-hand corner and then continue to fill it moving down to the lower right-hand corner. Whenever they cut our fabric, the grain line will go parallel with the longer edge. So we're going to have 18 across the weft and then 32 across the warp. So make sure that your design is facing up so that it'll be cut on grain. Okay, so facing up is the direction that my dragonfly is facing right now. Okay, so fill up your space. And then once you've got that done, the last two things you're going to do are set up your lines for cutting. So back to that instruction layer that we had here, it told us, I'm going to turn off my dragonfly so it's a little easier to read, but it told us for cut lines, we are going to put them in cyan, and we are going to put them at 0.001 line weight. So we need to go and make sure that we do that for our design. So you can turn on your design, go ahead and select it. Let me turn this off really quick so I can select all of that. And then I'm gonna grab my eyedropper and come into this color. So this is the exact cyan color that we need. So I'm gonna eyedropper that blue, and then again, turn off my fill. So now I only have cyan on my outlines. And then the next thing I need to do, I can turn off my instructions now because I've gotten what I needed. Now, the next thing I need to do is go to properties and turn my line weight to 0.001. Enter. Once you've done that, it's going to be very hard to see your design. So it's there. When I hover it over it, you can see all of my shapes, but it will be very difficult to see because it's very narrow lines and that bright blue color. So you can kind of see it against the background, but it's difficult to see. So if you want to see it, you'll just have to highlight it. Okay, once you've got all of that done, you've filled up the space with your design, you have set your lines to the proper properties, then you're ready to save your file. So go ahead, File, Save As. I usually just do my last name _ laser cut and save that. Oop, I practiced earlier, so got one already on there. Hit OK, and then I'm going to be ready to go submit it on the architecture website. So you can sign in using your Rater, your E-Rater login. And then once you've signed in, you will need a balance on here that it's at least $10. So the minimum that you're allowed to put on there and submit a job with is $10. So go ahead and put $10 on there. And I think if you have a printing account for on campus, I believe that balance will pull up here and you can use your printing account towards this as well. But go ahead and make sure you have at least $10 balance on there, and then you'll go ahead and go to submitting files. So here on the side, submit files, add a job. And then here you can start filling out your information. So first, last name, email. And then if you want email notifications or text message notifications about when your fabric is ready to be picked up, you can go ahead and check those and sign up for those. For your project name, just name it the same thing that you did your file. So RB Laser Cut or last name Laser Cut. File number, it's asking you how many files you're going to attach. So for us, we're just going to do one. Our file type is Illustrator. And then course number, ADM 4309. Professor name, I'm not going to be on here since I'm not in the College of Architecture, so just put other department. Material is going to be other as well, user's material. And then the template that we used was the 18 by 32, so make sure to select that. For ours, we only use the cyan for the full cut. So we're only doing full cuts on our design. So select cyan. If there are any notes that you need to go through, oops, it doesn't like my dash. There we go. If there are any, it doesn't like my space either. Okay, if there are any notes that you need to leave for the cutter, you can go ahead and put those here. And then click submit. It does not like ADM 4309, so we'll just put 4309. We'll get there eventually. There we go. Okay, and now you're going to click here and it'll come up to where you can select your file. So select your file, open, and attach it. And then I'm not going to attach it because that will actually submit it for them to cut, and I don't want them to cut that sample. But go ahead and attach it here. Once it says that the file has been successfully attached, then that is it. There's no other area for you to hit submit. So you can just make sure that, I think this, this gray area will turn green once you successfully have attached your file. And then the next step is to take your fabric to the architecture building. So I want you to use the fabric at the very beginning of the semester that you bought for laser cutting. So I suggested at the beginning of the semester that you buy a man-made fiber. Those typically laser cut better than natural fibers, because natural fibers will burn on the edges, but they do not singe, they don't sear, so they will still fray. So the edges of your laser cut will fray if you do a natural fiber. That's okay if that's what you want, if you want to work that into your design and have kind of a deconstructed look. But if you're wanting clean cut edges, then it's better to use a man-made fiber, because they will sear on the edge, meaning they will not fray. So go ahead and cut out an 18 by 32 piece of fabric, since that's the template we're using. 32 inches goes down the grain line of your piece. And take that to the architecture building. So you will hand deliver it. In the basement, there are these huge wooden carved doors. That is the place that you're headed to. It's the maker space where they have a lot of different laser cut, CNC machines, all different types of stuff. So you'll go there, deliver your fabric after you have submitted your job online. That way, when you deliver your fabric, they have a job to match it up with. So they'll ask you for your name. You can give them your name and they can match it up with the job that they have on the queue list. You can also go on here on their website and look at the queue. So you can see mine, it's saying that it's waiting for the material and it's waiting for the file. I'm gonna go ahead and delete mine since mine was just a test print. But at the moment, they don't have any jobs pending. They have a couple jobs that, or one job that needs to be picked up. So you can always check on the status of your job here. Again, if you sign up for the notifications, they'll also email you or text you once yours is ready to be picked up.